NewGenGamers.com.
Intelligent Systems was an offshoot of HAL. Several of their members went off to form this company. Nintendo picked them up as a second party, and they released the Wars series, which started off as the Famicom Wars, then there was the Game Boy Wars, Super Nintendo Wars, and then they eventually came to America as the Advance Wars. They also had the Fire Emblem series, which was prolific in Japan, right along with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, but they never made it to America till much later as well. So America really missed out on some great RPGs and some great games because of a belief that Americans would not enjoy those types of games. So if you want to play those types,
you may have to import them.
Import or emulate, because you cannot get a legitimate translated American version. So it's kind of a shame that we missed out on all those great games. But eventually Nintendo saw what Intelligent Systems was doing, and the thing that really brought them to America, as we discussed in other discussions, was Paper Mario.
Yeah, Paper Mario was a big thing.
So check out the N64 Console Wars for a little bit more on Intelligent Systems. So this is your role-playing game, turn-based battle system. You have characters with different classes, with different specialties in battle. Some specialize in physical attacks, some specialize in magic attacks, some specialize in defense. And of course, these games are based off the original Dungeons and Dragons games released in America, which were the pen and paper RPGs. And then as computer technology advanced, people began making them into computer games. And so Japan really created their own niche version of how RPGs were to be made, and it basically follows the model that Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy set. And pretty much every RPG, even to today, is heavily influenced by those two games.
Yeah, Final Fantasy was a groundbreaking title and continues to be so to this day. I mean, every new Final Fantasy comes out with, you know, some different system, or they want to try something different.
So much to the point that some of the hardcore Final Fantasy fans say that Final Fantasy XII, the newest one, is the best one yet. So, you know, they've continued to improve, and every one of them's great. Just a prolific series.
Save for maybe 11, unless you're an online player. That's the thing. It stuck out to a really niche audience.
It was a good game. It just wasn't like the other Final Fantasies. So, but that game's still going. I mean, it's going strong with a continued growing user base, which is even more impressive because it's going across several consoles, several PC generations now, and it's still going strong. So that's tantamount to what they did with that.
Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job with it. And one of my characters died.
Oh, Vivi.
Vivi is done. Yeah, I didn't get a chance. I didn't power level these characters. This is somebody else's game.
And we have a lot of memorable characters from the Final Fantasy series, such as the Black Mage. They're so generic, but they're such an iconic looking character. And I used to actually have a Black Mage sprite from this game cut out on my wall.
I actually have the little Vivi doll.
Sweet. So when Final Fantasy IX came out, they actually brought back the classic Black Mage from these games as that character, and gave one a personality. So Vivi became a memorable character.
So anytime you see a Black Mage anymore, most of the time people name it Vivi.
Yeah, it's almost become its own. I don't know what.
It's kind of become
a lasting character that there was originally just a generic character. You know, the Black Mage has now become something through the character Vivi, and that's what Square brought to the table, and what these games brought to the table, as opposed to traditional space games and military games, was they all have a heartfelt story. They're mostly set in, you know, a world filled with chaos where one group or one individual needs to rise up and save everything. And, you know, you really get an attachment to the character. And with this one, you know, you name the characters and make up.
You draw your own attachments.
Yeah, you draw your own attachments. Later games would have very set characters, and would become more like interactive movies, really. So
we've really delved into the lore of Final Fantasy. I think we've covered that.
I think we're good. So let's look at one more game. One more game that over 17 million people have purchased.
What is the perfect way to close out our NES set? With probably one of the most iconic games of all time.
Well, I don't think we could talk about the Nintendo Entertainment System without talking about Super Mario Bros. 3, especially considering it was the #1 standalone selling game for the system. Super Mario Bros. 1 sold more because it was packed in with the Nintendo, but Mario 3 sold 17 million, and very few of those were packed in with consoles. Most of them were just retail purchases. Yeah. So at the time, it was the best-selling game of all time. It sat at the top of the sales charts for, I think, a couple years, actually.
Has anything surpassed it?
Yeah, the Pokemon series has now, and some other Nintendo stuff has. I believe the Grand Theft Auto series has, or come close. The big series.
Now,
your Gran
series,
Turismos.
But any single game.
Single games have, but not many. It's still very, very high up on the all-time list.
Because I was always wondering, do you count Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue separately?
I don't think they do. I'm not actually, I think they do. Either way, it's outsold it.
Okay.
Each iteration of Pokemon, I think's outsold it, actually. But
Pokemon's
at the time,
insane.
but at the time, this, and for a lot of years, this was the best-selling game by far. Look at Ray and his tricks.
Oh, I know this game like the back of my freaking hand.
So we've said so much about Miyamoto and Nintendo's first-party efforts throughout this dialogue. So if you're just jumping into the last episode, then you're going to have to watch the rest to get the whole story, because this has been a long, long journey here. And let it also be said that we've done this all in one sitting. Sat down from beginning to end and played through every one of these titles. So this has been a long journey for us. We've been running our mouths for a long time here. But there's so much to say, and
with the NES, it's really hard not to say so many things, because so much stuff was happening back then.
Yeah, it's so pivotal in the video game industry and in the grand scheme of the industry as far as what it did. We didn't even go into the wacky other peripherals that were released for this system, such as the Power Glove, the U-Force, the Power Pad, to go along with the Zapper.
"新しい冒険が今始まろうとしている。愛よ、勇気よ、奮い立て。僕らはマリオと強くなる。テクニカルファンタジーゲーム「スーパーマリオブラザーズ3」。
2J Gamers.com